Hey Jay, I'm gonna read Alice in Wonderland to you. Chapter 1. Down the Rabbit Hole. Alice was beginning to get very tired of sitting by her sister on the bank, and having nothing to do, once or twice, she had peeped into the book her sister was reading. But it had no pictures or conversations in it, and what is the use of a book, thought Alice, without pictures or conversations? So she was considering in her own mind, as well as she could, for the hot day made her feel very sleepy and stupid, whether the pleasure of making a daisy chain would be worth all the trouble of getting up and picking up daisies, when suddenly a white rabbit with pink eyes ran close by her. There was nothing very remarkable to that, nor did Alice think of it very much the way she heard the rabbit say to herself, oh dear, I shall be late." When she thought it over afterwards, it occurred to her that she ought to have wondered about this. But at the time it seemed all quite natural. Oh, and then, when the rabbit actually took out a watch from its waistcoat pocket and looked at it, and hurried on, Alice started to her feet, for it flashed across her mind that she had never before seen a rabbit with either a waistcoat or a pocket, or a watch to take out of it. And burning with curiosity, she ran across the field after it, and fortunately was just in time to see it pop down a large rabbit hole under the hedge. In another moment, down went Alice after it, never once considering how in the world she was to get out again. The rabbit hole went straight on like a tunnel for some way, and then dipped down so suddenly that Alice had not a moment to think about stopping herself before she found herself falling down a very deep well. Either the well was very deep or she fell very slowly, for she had plenty of time as she went down to look about her, to wonder what was going to happen next. First she tried to look down and make out what she was coming to, but it was too dark to see anything. Then she looked to the sides of the well, and noticed that they were filled with cupboards and bookshelves, and here and there she saw maps and pictures hung upon pegs. She took a jar from one of the sleeves as she passed, and it was labeled orange marmalade, but to her great disappointment it was empty. She did not like to drop the jar for fear of killing someone, so she managed to put it up to one of the cupboards as she fell past it. Well, thought Alice to herself, after such a fall as this, I shall have to think nothing of tumbling downstairs. How brave they'll all think of me at home. Why, I wouldn't say anything about it, even if I fell off the top of the house, which was very likely true. Down, would the fall never come to an end. I wonder how many miles I've fallen by this time, she said aloud. I must be getting somewhere near the center of Earth. Let me see. That would be 4,000 miles down, I think. For you see, Alice had learnt several special things of the sort in her lessons in her schoolroom, and though this was not a very good opportunity for her showing off her knowledge, as there was no one to listen to her, still it was good practice to say it over. Yes, that about is the right distance. But then I wonder what longitude or latitude I got to. Alice had no idea what latitude was, or what longitude either, but thought they were nice grand words to say. Presently she began again. I wonder if I shall fall right through the earth. How funny it will seem to come up among the people that walk with their heads downwards. The antipathies, I think. She was rather glad there was no one listening this time, as it didn't sound at all the right word. But I shall have to ask them what country this is, you know. Please, ma'am, is this New Zealand or Australia? And she tried to aid into courtesy as she spoke. Fancy courtesying as you're falling through the air. Do you think you could manage it? And what an ignorant little girl she'll think of me for asking. No, it'll never do to ask. Perhaps I shall see it written up somewhere. Down. There was nothing else to do, so Alice began talking again. Diana will miss me very much tonight, I think. Diana was the cat. I hope they'll remember her saucer of milk at tea time. Diana, my dear, I wish you were down here with me. There's no mice in the air, I'm afraid, but you might catch a bat, and that's very much like a mouse, you know. But do cats eat bats, I wonder? And here Alice began to get rather sleepy, and went on saying to herself in a dreamy sort of way, do cats eat bats? Do cats eat bats? And sometimes, do bats eat cats? For you see, she could not answer either question. It didn't matter much which way she put it. She felt that she was dozing off, and had begun to dream that she was walking hand in hand with Diana, and saying to her much very earnestly, now, Diana, tell me the truth. Did you ever eat a bat? When suddenly, thump, down she came, upon a heap of sticks and dried leaves. The fall was over. Alice was not a bit hurt, but she jumped up onto her feet in the moment, and she looked up, but it was dark all overhead. Before her was a long passage, and the white rabbit was still in sight, hurrying down it. There was not a moment to be lost. Away went Alice like the wind. She came just in time to hear it say as it turned the corner, "Oh, my ears and whiskers, how late it's getting." She was close behind it, and when she turned the corner, but the rabbit was no longer to be seen, she found herself in a long, long hallway, which was lit up by the row of lamps hanging from the roof. There were doors all around the hall, but they were all locked. When Alice had been all the way down one side and out the other, trying every door, she walked sadly down to the middle, wondering how she was ever to get out again. Suddenly she came upon a three-legged table, all made of solid glass. There was nothing on it except a tiny golden key, and Alice's first thought was that it might belong to one of the doors in the hall, but alas, either the locks were too large or the key was too small. But at any rate, it would not open any of them. However, on the second time around, she came upon a low curtain which she had not noticed before, and behind it was a great little door, about 15 inches high. She tried the golden key in the lock, and to her delight it fitted. Alice opened the door and found that it led to a small passage not much bigger than a rat hole. She knelt down and looked along the passage into the loveliest garden you ever saw. How she longed to get out of that dark hole, and wandered about and among those beds of bright flowers and those cool fountains. But she could not even get her head through the doorway, and even if my head could go through, thought poor Alice, it would be of very little to use without my shoulders. Oh, how I wish I could shut up like a telescope. I think if I could, if only I knew how to begin. For you see, so many out-of-the-way things had happened lately, that Alice had begun to think that very few things indeed were really impossible. There seemed to be no use in waiting by the poor little door, so she went out back to the table, half hoping she might find another key on it, or at any rate, a book of rules for shutting people up like telescopes. This time she found a little bottle on it, which certainly was not here before, said Alice, and the round neck of the bottle was a paper label, with the word "Strictly" beautifully printed in large letters. It was all very well to say "drink me," but the wise little Alice was not going to do that in a hurry. "No, I'll look first," she said, "to see whether it's marked poison or not," for she had read several nice little histories about children who had gotten burnt and eaten by wild beasts and other pleasant things, all because they would not remember the simple rules their friends had taught them, such as a red-hot poker will burn you if you hold it too long, and that if you cut your finger very deeply with a knife, it usually bleeds. She had never forgotten that if you drink too much from a bottle marked poison, it is almost certain to disagree with you sooner or later. However, this bottle was not marked poison, so Alice ventured to taste it, and finding it very nice, it had in fact a sort of mixed flavor of cherry tart, custard, pineapple, roast turkey, toffee, and hot buttered toast. She then very soon finished it off. "What a curious feeling," said Alice. "I must be shutting up like a telescope." And so it was indeed. She was now only 10 inches high, and her face brightened up at the thought that she was now the right size for going to the little door, into that lovely garden first. However, she waited for a few minutes to see if she was going to shrink any further. She felt very nervous about this, for it might end, sounded Alice to herself, in my going out altogether, like a candle. I wonder what I should be like then. She tried to fancy what a flame of a candle was like after the candle was blown out, for she could not remember ever seeing such a thing. After a while, finding that nothing more had happened, she decided to go on into the garden at once. But alas for poor Alice, when she got into the door, she found that she had forgotten the golden little key, and when she went back to the table for it, she found that she could not possibly reach it. She could see it quite plainly through the glass, and she tried her best to climb up one of the legs of the table, but it was too slippery, and when she had tired herself out with trying, the poor little thing sat down and cried. "Come now, there's no use crying like that," said Alice to herself rather sharply. "I advise you to leave this off this minute." She generally gave herself very good advice, though very seldom followed it, and sometimes she scolded herself so severely as to bring tears to her eyes, and once she remembered trying to box her own ears for having cheated herself in the game of croquet she was playing against herself, for this curious child was very fond of pretending to be two people. "But it's no use now," thought poor Alice, "to pretend to be two people. Why, there's hardly enough of me to make one respectable person." Soon Her eye fell on the little glass box, which was lying under the table. She opened it and found in it a very small cake, on which the words "Eat me" were beautifully marked in curtains. "Well, I'll eat it," said Alice, "and if it makes me grow larger, I can reach the key, and if it makes me grow smaller, I can creep under the door. So either way, I'll get into the garden, and I don't care which happens." She ate a little bit, and said anxiously to herself, "Which way, which way?" holding her hand to the top of her head to feel which way it was growing, and she was quite surprised to find that she remained the same size, to be sure. This generally happens when one eats cake, but Alice had got so much in the way of expecting nothing but out of the way things to happen, that it seemed quite dull and stupid for life to go on in the common way. So she set to work and very soon finished the cake. End of chapter 1.